Imagine a multi-billion-dollar television enterprise. I mean, we are talking absolute weekend broadcasting dominance here.
Oh, absolutely. Billions upon billions of dollars.
Yeah. You've got stadiums packed with like 100,000 screaming fans,
Yeah.
staggering broadcast contracts.
Contracts that literally rival the GDP of some small island nations, honestly.
Exactly. But here is the catch, and it's a huge one. The primary actors on the screen, the people actually taking the physical hits and scoring the points.
The ones driving every single ounce of that revenue.
Yes, them. They are legally barred from receiving a direct paycheck from the network or the production company.
It sounds completely absurd when you phrase it like that.
It does. Instead, they're making millions from, local car dealerships or independent wealthy donors.
And these unregulated shell companies that operate entirely outside the official balance sheet of the university.
Right. If you describe this setup to a forensic accountant, they'd probably think you were detailing, like, an elaborate international money laundering scheme.
They'd be calling the authorities for sure.
But you're not. It's literally just a regular Saturday in modern college football.
Yeah. It is the ultimate ghost economy. And what's really fascinating here is that it is entirely unique in the global sports landscape.
There's really nothing else like it, right?
Nothing. You have this massive, highly visible commercial engine running perfectly parallel to a completely decentralized, totally unacknowledged labor market.
Which brings us to exactly why we are here. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So if you are a student athlete out there trying to, decipher your actual market value.
Or an athletic director who is currently losing sleep over a business model that is actively crumbling.
Yeah, or even just the diehard fan who's wondering why the sport you love feels like a daily chaotic soap opera right now, you are in the exact right place.
We are getting way past the social media hot takes today.
Exactly. We are skipping the highlight reels. We are getting straight into the engine room. Our source material today is this highly analytical, incredibly detailed document.
Right, titled The Remix.
The Remix, yeah. And it basically takes this really intense film room approach to the business of college sports.
It really slows the game down, so to speak.
It does, and its core premise is startlingly clear. It basically says the era of pretending is just over.
Completely over.
The sport doesn't lack money. It definitely doesn't lack talent. What it lacks, fundamentally, is any kind of functional, intentional organization.
Yeah, and the authors of the remix use that phrase deliberately, intentional structure.
Because it's different from what they had before.
Exactly. The history of the NCAA has been defined by authoritarian control, not structure.
Right. The old regime.
Right. For decades, the governing body literally dictated the exact price of a bagel an athlete could eat for breakfast.
Which is insane.
While simultaneously just ignoring the billions of dollars flowing into the television suites right upstairs.
Total hypocrisy.
And what this document argues is that you just cannot claw back that old dictatorial control.
The toothpaste is out of the tube.
It's legally and practically impossible. But on the flip side, you also cannot survive the current state of anarchy.
Right. And to really understand the solutions the remix proposes, and we are going to get into some heavy stuff like soft caps, luxury taxes, and even the potential for a completely separate top-tier league.
Nuclear option.
We'll get there, yeah. But first, we really have to diagnose the disease.
You have to know what's actually broken.
Exactly. The document points to this illusion of amateurism as the original sin that created our current totally fragmented reality.
The clash between the illusion and the reality on the ground.
Yeah, but let's actually look at the mechanics of that fragmentation. Like, we throw around terms like NIL and collectives constantly.
Think about every single day on sports talk radio.
But how did we actually end up with an ecosystem where the money is everywhere, but it's completely disconnected from the actual product on the field?
Well, you really have to look at the legal mechanism of how the dam broke.
Okay, take us back.
So for years, the NCAA used this concept of amateurism essentially as a legal shield against antitrust lawsuits.
Right, claiming they weren't businesses, they were academic institutions.
Exactly. But once the court started dismantling that shield, most notably, in the Supreme Court's Alston decision.
Which was a massive earthquake for the sport.
Huge. Once that happened, the market didn't just slowly open, it violently exploded. And it exploded unevenly.
Because the NCAA was still dragging its feet.
Exactly. They still refused to let universities pay players directly. So a loophole was exploited.
Enter the collectives.
Right. Third-party organizations called NIL collectives just sprang up overnight.
And for anyone who isn't deep in the weeds, what are these, practically speaking?
They are essentially independent pools of booster and donor money, and they use that money to pay players under the guise of name, image, and likeness marketing deals.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I'm looking at this from a pure economic standpoint, that makes zero sense.
It makes no sense at all.
Right. Like, why would a billion-dollar industry voluntarily allow third-party boosters, people they don't employ, to control the payroll of its most vital
Well,
assets?
because they felt they had no choice.
Legal fears, right.
Exactly. The universities were terrified. They were legally terrified of violating remaining NCAA bylaws and especially Title IX regulations if they started paying players directly.
So they basically outsourced their entire labor compensation.
They did. And what happened next is just fascinating. State legislatures got involved.
Oh, right, the state laws. This is where it gets crazy.
Yeah. Lawmakers realized that if they passed local state laws protecting these third-party collectives from NCAA oversight,
Then their in-state universities would get a massive recruiting advantage.
bingo, it was literally state-sponsored deregulation.
Uh-huh.
You had lawmakers in states like Missouri or Texas or Tennessee actively drafting legislation with the sole purpose of preventing the NCAA from investigating their local college football programs.
So it was just a race to the bottom.
A total race to the bottom of regulatory oversight, designed entirely to just help the local team win on Saturday.
So let me get this straight. Instead of a national sports league with, standardized rules across the board.
Like the NFL or the NBA.
Right. We basically have 50 different regulatory environments, all actively trying to sabotage the central governing body.
That's exactly what it is.
It's like, okay, think of a booming, incredibly wealthy metropolis, right?
All right, I'm with you.
But the city planners somehow just forgot to install any traffic lights.
That is a perfect analogy.
There is incredible energy, commerce is everywhere, cars are flying around, but collisions are completely inevitable because there is literally no system routing the traffic.
And that lack of traffic lights creates what the remix identifies as the core danger here, a fragmented ecosystem.
The disconnected rivers of money.
Yes. Think about the rivers of cash flowing through college football right now. You have the university athletic departments raking in billions in television broadcast rights.
Right, the TV deals are astronomical.
Then you have the third-party booster collectives pooling millions to pay the players.
Over in their own little silo.
Exactly. And then you have the players themselves who are transferring multiple times to chase these fragmented, unregulated pools of money.
Because why wouldn't they?
Right. But the problem is none of these financial rivers legally talk to each other.
They aren't connected at all.
No. The university doesn't officially control the collective's payroll, the collective doesn't get a cut of the TV money, and the athlete is just caught in the crossfire of all of it.
Let's actually focus on the athlete for a second because, I think the narrative out there in the media is often, oh, these kids are making millions now, they shouldn't complain, they have it so good.
Which is a huge oversimplification.
Huge. If you are an 18 or 19-year-old quarterback navigating this specific fragmented system, it honestly doesn't sound like empowerment to me.
Not at all.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare of liabilities and stress.
It is an incredible burden on a teenager. I mean, the system essentially asks an 18-year-old to act as the CEO of their own personal brand.
Right.
Plus, they have to be their own general manager and their own legal counsel.
All while, trying to learn a collegiate playbook and actually attend college classes.
Exactly. If you look at a structured professional league, like the NFL, a rookie signs a standardized contract.
It's all laid out for them.
It has clear terms, guaranteed money, workers' compensation protections, and a powerful players' union standing right behind them.
Right, like if you tear your ACL in the NFL, your contract dictates exactly what happens to your salary and your medical care.
The safety net is built in.
So what happens to a college athlete who tears his ACL under our current traffic light-free system?
That is exactly where the phantom promises of this fragmented reality just completely fall apart.
Because they aren't employees.
Right. In college, you don't have an employment contract with the university. You have a scholarship agreement.
Which is very different.
Very. And your income isn't actually coming from the school. It's coming from an independent collective.
The third-party boosters.
Yes. So if you suffer a career-ending injury, that collective is under absolutely no legal obligation to keep paying you your NIL valuation next year.
Wow. So they can just drop you.
They're going to take that money, cut their losses, and give it to the healthy transfer portal recruit who can win them games tomorrow.
That is Brutal.
Because the university cannot officially pay a salary, the athlete is entirely relying on the whims of unconnected third parties.
So it's not really a professionalized sport at all.
No, it isn't professionalization. It's just unregulated gig work that's been disguised as an athletic career.
Unregulated gig work, that is a heavy way to put it, but it's so accurate. It's the illusion of a free market, but without any of the structural safety nets that actual free markets rely on to prevent a total collapse.
Precisely.
Which honestly leads us perfectly into how the remix attempts to actually fix this mess.
The solutions phase.
Right. We've established that the current ecosystem is basically this hyper-capitalist Wild West. So I think the natural instinct for most sports fans when they look at this is to just say, well, just put a salary cap on it, make it exactly like the NFL.
That is the most common reaction for sure.
But the text is incredibly aggressive on this specific point. It argues that a traditional hard salary cap is just completely dead on arrival.
It will not work.
So walk me through why, because on paper, a hard cap seems like the most logical way to stop the bleeding, right?
Well, on paper, yes. In a total vacuum, a hard cap is great. It creates parity.
It levels the playing field.
Right. It is a strict, concrete ceiling.
Hmm.
A league says, okay, every team has exactly $200 million to spend on player compensation. If you spend one single dollar over that, your contracts are voided and you lose draft picks.
Simple, clean, effective.
But college football does not exist in a vacuum.
Right.
A hard cap only works if it is collectively bargained with a recognized labor union.
Which college athletes currently do not have.
Exactly. And, more importantly, implementing a hard cap requires federal antitrust exemptions.
Because without an exemption or a union, you essentially have a group of businesses, which is what universities are in this context.
Very large businesses.
Yeah. Colluding to artificially limit the wages of their workforce. And that is highly illegal.
It's textbook price fixing. The NCAA has lost case after case after case in federal court because they keep trying to unilaterally cap compensation without a collectively bargained agreement.
They just keep hitting the same legal brick wall.
They do. But even beyond the federal courts, remember those state laws we just talked about?
Oh, right. The race to the bottom.
Yeah. You have dozens of states that have literally written it into state law that universities and collectives cannot be restricted in their NIL spending by the NCAA.
So it's illegal on a federal level and a state level.
Yes. If the NCAA or a conference tried to just drop a concrete hard cap onto a market that has violently, legally broken free of all constraints, it would shatter instantly.
Like trying to stop a freight train with a stop sign.
You cannot force a rigid lid onto a boiling pot when 50 different state legislatures are actively turning up the heat.
Okay, so the concrete ceiling is definitely out. We can't build a wall to stop the water. Right. So how do we, dig a canal to redirect it?
That brings us to the middle solution proposed in the text.
Right, the soft cap and the luxury tax. Let's get into this.
This is where the remix gets highly pragmatic. A soft cap works with the current momentum instead of fighting it.
It acknowledges reality.
Yes, it acknowledges the legal reality. A soft cap essentially says, okay, we concede. You are going to spend money. The market is booming.
The water is flowing.
But instead of a hard ceiling, we are going to establish a threshold. And if your athletic program spends over that threshold, there will be a financial consequence.
So it's a permeable barrier. You can go through it, but it costs you.
Exactly.
Okay, let's attach some hypothetical numbers to this so we can really see the mechanics for the listener.
Good idea.
Let's say a conference sets the soft cap threshold at, I don't know, $25 million per year for a football roster.
Okay, $25 million. If a mid-tier program spends $20 million, they are totally fine. They operate normally.
No penalties.
Right. But if a massive powerhouse program, say an Ohio State, a Texas, or a Georgia, decides they want to spend $40 million to assemble an absolute super team.
Because they have the boosters to do it.
Right. The soft cap allows them to do that. Their contracts aren't voided. Nobody gets suspended.
Okay.
But for every dollar they spend over that $25 million threshold, they trigger the luxury tax.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and where I have to push back a little bit.
Lay it on me.
I'm looking at this from the perspective of a billionaire booster in the SEC or the Big Ten.
Okay.
These athletic departments have endowments that are larger than the GDP of some nations, right?
Oh, without a doubt.
So if I have oil money or tech money, and my sole goal in life is to see my alma mater win a national championship,
Yeah.
why do I care about a luxury tax?
You're saying they'll just pay it?
Yeah. If my school can just afford to pay the penalty, doesn't this just mean the richest schools still buy all the best players? They just have to write a slightly larger check to do it.
It's a fair point.
It feels like a speed bump for a tank. It's not going to stop them.
It is a vital question, and honestly, it's the primary critique of the soft cap model.
Mm.
But you have to look closely at the mechanics of the luxury tax.
Okay, explain the mechanics.
The goal isn't to force perfect parity. Parity in college football is a myth. It has literally never existed.
True, the Blue Bloods have always dominated.
Right. The actual goal is to create a managed economy. Think about right now, in the unregulated ghost economy.
Okay.
A booster gives $5 million to a collective. The collective gives it to a five-star recruit, and that capital just vanishes from the broader ecosystem.
It serves one player and one team.
Exactly. It's siloed wealth. But under the model proposed in the remix, that excess spending is taxed and pooled.
And where does the tax money go?
Well, look at professional leagues with luxury taxes like Major League Baseball.
Mm.
That tax revenue is redistributed. It goes to the teams that stayed under the cap, which helps maintain some level of competitive balance.
Oh, wow.
Or it goes into a central league fund for athlete healthcare, pension plans, or developmental programs.
Oh, I see the architecture now. That is fascinating.
Right.
It takes the chaotic, selfish spending of the mega boosters and turns it into structural fuel for the rest of the league.
Yes. It doesn't stop the flow of water. It builds a hydroelectric dam to capture some of the energy.
That is a great way to put it.
Even if the rich schools keep spending aggressively and blowing past the soft cap, their excess spending is officially tracked, mathematically accounted for, and fundamentally redistributed.
So the massive wealth of the top tier actually ends up subsidizing the sustainability of the middle tier.
Exactly. It forces the dark money out into the light.
Right.
That is the definition of intentional structure.
And you know what? That drastically changes the psychology of the athletic director, too.
How so?
Well, if I'm running a powerhouse program, I have to do a serious cost-benefit analysis now.
Right.
Is outbidding a rival for a backup left tackle really worth spending an extra $1 million? If the luxury tax multiplier means it actually costs my department $2.5 million.
Exactly. The math changes.
And knowing that the extra $1.5 million is going to be handed directly to my conference rivals, I had to think twice.
Precisely. It introduces market friction. It doesn't stop the transaction, but it ensures the transaction comes with a holistic cost.
It brings discipline to a market that currently has absolutely none.
That is the whole point of the middle solution.
Okay, so the luxury tax addresses the macro-level spending of the schools and the boosters. It builds the dam.
Right.
But we still have a massive piece of the puzzle unsolved on the micro level.
The players.
Yes. How do we organize the money flowing directly to the players? Because if the athletes are still getting their paychecks from shady, unconnected third-party collectives, the system is still fundamentally broken for them.
The tax might help the schools, but it doesn't protect the 19-year-old quarterback.
Exactly. The gig worker reality is still there.
Which is exactly why the remix emphasizes that a soft cap cannot exist in a vacuum. It has to be paired with centralized structures.
What does that look like?
The text strongly advocates for organizing NIL pools directly at the university or conference level.
Meaning we officially cut out the middleman?
Yes.
The collective is either absorbed by the university or rendered completely obsolete. And the athletic department takes direct control of the payroll baseline.
Exactly. And the text notes that doing this creates a clearer baseline for the players. It gives the market shape without eliminating their outside entrepreneurial opportunities.
Okay, I really want to translate this concept carefully because for student athlete listening to this is the difference between constant daily anxiety and actual professional stability.
It's a life-changing shift.
Let's look at the mechanics of bringing NIL in-house. Right now, like we said, an athlete is essentially a freelance worker.
Right.
You are constantly hustling. Your income is entirely dependent on external booster moods, and there is zero guaranteed baseline.
If the booster gets mad at a bad game, the money might vanish.
Exactly. But what the centralized model does is transition the athlete from a freelancer to basically a high-level corporate sales executive.
Walk me through the mechanics of that corporate executive model.
Okay, so if you are an executive, you have a reliable base salary provided directly by the corporation.
In this case, the university or the conference.
Right. You know exactly what is hitting your bank account every 2 weeks just for being part of the team, showing up to practice, and fulfilling your roster obligations.
That is your centralized, structured baseline. It's reliable.
Yes. But, and this is the crucial part that prevents it from violating antitrust laws, It does not put a ceiling on your earning potential.
You still have uncapped commission.
Exactly. If you are a superstar running back and you want to go out and sign an independent national brand deal with a car manufacturer or a shoe company, you are completely free to do so.
Nobody is stopping you.
The centralized structure provides the secure floor, but the free market still provides the limitless ceiling.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that structure fundamentally cures the unconnected problem we diagnosed earlier.
How so?
Well, right now, the university provides the tuition scholarship, the independent collective provides the cash, and the athlete has to manage two distinct, often conflicting masters.
Which is exhausting.
By centralizing the baseline NIL pool within the school, you align the incentives. The entity you are playing for is officially the entity providing your baseline compensation.
It creates a unified employer-employee relationship, even if we are, legally hesitant to use the word employee just yet.
Right, the E word is still scary for the NCAA.
But let's look at this from the coaching perspective for a minute, because if there is one group in college football right now that looks absolutely miserable, it's the head coaches.
Oh, they're completely exhausted.
They were making $10 million a year, sure, but they are essentially full-time fundraisers for third-party collectives just to keep their rosters intact.
The burnout among coaching staffs is astronomical right now.
I bet.
When NIL is centralized and functioning like a predictable base salary pool, coaches and athletic directors can finally budget and plan.
Because right now they can't.
Right now, a coach doesn't know if his star defensive end is going to enter the transfer portal tomorrow because a rival collective secretly offered him a bag of cash.
It's a daily auction.
It is. But if you have centralized pools tied to the conference soft cap we discussed, you introduce vital predictability.
The traffic lights.
Exactly. An athletic director can sit down and say, okay, our baseline player compensation budget for the next 3 years is exactly X million dollars.
They can actually map out their roster expenditures.
It allows college programs to operate like actual businesses with multi-year forecasting rather than reacting daily to the whims of the unregulated collective market.
It gives the market shape, like the document says. It transforms it from an amorphous, shifting blob of booster money into a defined corporate structure.
Which is what everyone desperately needs.
But here is the massive, looming roadblock.
There's always a roadblock.
We have the theory. We have the tools, the soft caps, the luxury taxes, the centralized in-house NIL baselines. They make total logical sense.
On paper.
Right. But how does a gargantuan, slow-moving, historically stubborn institution like college sports actually implement these things?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question.
We are talking about unwinding a century of legal precedent and institutional hypocrisy here.
This is the crux of the entire debate, and the remix outlines two very different potential futures for how this implementation happens.
Okay, break them down.
There are two distinct paths. Path A is what we can call the gradual acknowledgement. Path B is the nuclear option, a complete structural severance.
So let's dive deep into Path A first, because to me, Path A sounds like the most difficult tightrope walk in the history of sports administration.
It's incredibly complex.
The text describes it as a precise sequence of steps: contracts, defined roles, and finally, revenue sharing. Why is the sequence so rigid? Like, why can't a university just look at its massive television contract today and say, we're going to start giving 20% of this directly to the players?
Because if they do that today, under the current legal framework, the entire university system collapses under Title IX and tax liability.
An instant lawsuit.
Exactly. The sequence outlined in Path A is completely non-negotiable. You have to trace it chronologically.
Okay, so step one.
Step one is contracts. Before you can legally share broadcast revenue, you have to formally define the legal relationship between the athlete and the institution.
Because the scholarship isn't enough.
Right now, a scholarship agreement is legally flimsy regarding employment status. A true contract formalizes the relationship.
It puts it in writing.
It outlines expectations, obligations, baseline compensation, and crucially, termination clauses.
Okay, so first, we sign the paperwork. We abandon the amateurism shield entirely and admit these are professional contractual relationships.
Yes.
What is the specific hurdle in step two then?
Step two is defined roles.
Defined roles.
Once you have a contract, you have to legally classify what the student-athlete actually is under state and federal labor laws.
Oh, this is where it gets messy.
Very. Are they a W-2 employee? Are they an independent contractor? A joint venture partner?
Who decides that?
This is where the National Labor Relations Board is heavily involved right now. Defining their role legally establishes their rights, regarding unionization.
Ah, because you can't have a collective bargaining agreement, which, going back to what we said, you need to protect the soft cap from antitrust lawsuits
Exactly.
if the workforce isn't legally allowed to form a union in the first place.
The dominoes have to fall in exact order. Contract, then classification, then unionization. And only then do you reach step 3, revenue sharing.
Let's pause on revenue sharing because this is where the Title IX reality hits incredibly hard.
It's the biggest elephant in the room.
For those who might need a refresher, Title IX is a federal civil rights law that basically prohibits sex-based discrimination in any school or any other education program that receives funding from the federal government.
Almost every university in the country.
Right. So if an athletic department formally classifies its football players as employees and starts sharing television revenue directly with them,
Which is mostly men.
right, how does that department legally justify not paying the exact same salaries to the women's volleyball team or the softball team who do not generate the same broadcast revenue?
That is the absolute crisis of Path A.
How do they solve it?
If the compensation is tethered to the educational institution, Title IX strictly applies. This means athletic departments would likely have to artificially reduce the revenue share for football players to ensure equitable distribution across all men's and women's sports.
Which instantly makes the football players furious.
Obviously, because they are the ones generating the media rights value. They are the ones on the broadcast.
So Path A is basically saying, look, we are going to keep the historical romantic umbrella of college sports. We're still going to call it college football.
They will still wear the university color.
Walk the campus quads, go to classes. But underneath that academic umbrella, we're going to slowly, painstakingly transform the financial mechanics into a professional sports model.
While somehow dodging federal labor laws and Title IX lawsuits along the way.
It sounds like a nightmare. It is a slow, methodical rewiring of a massive, ancient house while you are still actively living inside it.
You are trying to force a professional sports business model to coexist inside a nonprofit educational framework.
Which sounds not just difficult, but potentially impossible without, literal congressional intervention.
Many people believe it is impossible.
Rewiring a house while living in it usually means you get shocked, the power goes out, and eventually the house just catches fire.
Which is exactly why the remix presents Path B, the alternative.
The nuclear option.
The nuclear option. The document argues that if the legal friction of Path A is insurmountable, you have to stop pretending.
You just lean into the reality.
You take the top tier of the sport and you separate it entirely.
Wow.
Major college football operates as its own standalone entity. It becomes a professional developmental league with its own rules, its own corporate structure, and its own identity.
Completely severed from the NCAA and the academic side of the university.
A total break.
Let's really visualize the magnitude of what that means for a second. We're talking about taking the top 60 or 70 revenue-generating football programs.
The Alabamas, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Georgias.
Right. And officially cutting the cord, the university essentially just licenses its branding, its colors, and its stadium to a separate corporate entity.
It becomes a standalone commercial enterprise.
Like a franchise.
Exactly. Perhaps backed by private equity, or maybe owned jointly by the television broadcast partners and the universities themselves acting as shareholders.
So, if we deeply compare these two futures, Path A maintains the illusion of the collegiate model no matter how hard it gets.
Right.
But Path B acknowledges that top-tier football has utterly outgrown the bounds of higher education.
It admits what everyone already knows.
If they take Path B, major college football officially becomes the minor leagues for the NFL.
It does. But legally, it solves almost every single headache we just discussed.
How so? Walk me through the legal side of Path B.
Well, if the football program is a separate for-profit corporate entity and not an educational program, Title IX no longer applies in the same way to player compensation.
Because it's not a school anymore.
Right. The players are officially W-2 employees of the league, not students of the university.
That is a massive distinction.
Huge. They can form a union immediately. They can collectively bargain a true hard salary cap, a draft, trades, direct revenue sharing.
You can implement all the perfect, logical financial mechanics of the NFL because you are no longer bound by the pretense of higher education.
Exactly. It's clean.
But what happens to the rest of the sports? What happens to the field hockey team?
The rest of college athletics, the non-revenue Olympic sports, the field hockey teams, the swim teams, even the mid-major football programs, they stay under the traditional NCAA model.
They stay amateurs.
They remain true student athletes in the historical sense. The academic nonprofit mission is preserved for 95% of college athletes, while the 5% that generate billions are spun off into a corporate structure.
It is a breathtakingly clean structural break when you lay it out like that. It allows the athletic department to just offload the massive legal liability and the complexity of managing a professional football franchise.
It makes perfect business sense.
But wait. If the university offloads the football program to a separate corporate league, they also lose fundamental control over the most powerful marketing engine their university possesses.
That is the trade-off?
College football isn't just a sport. For many of these institutions, it is their primary national brand identity.
It's the front porch of the university.
Right. It drives enrollment, it drives alumni donations to the academic side, it drives the cultural footprint of the entire state. Handing that over to a standalone league is an incredible risk.
It is the ultimate existential gamble for a university president. And when you lay out the mechanics of Path A versus Path B, it emphasizes the core thesis of the remix.
That the current way is dead.
The era of unregulated chaos, this ghost economy where nothing is connected, is dead. It is economically and legally unsustainable.
The choice facing the administrators, the television executives, and the athletes isn't between pure 1950s amateurism and full professional control.
No, that ship sailed a long time ago.
The future relies entirely on intentional structure.
The toothpaste is never going back into the tube. The choice is simply what shape the new container will take.
Exactly. Whether that happens through the agonizingly slow, gradual implementation of Path A, the luxury taxes, the centralized in-house NIL pools, the sequential rollout of contracts, and navigation of Title next.
Which sounds painful.
Or whether it happens through the blunt force trauma of Path B, a completely separate corporate developmental league. Change isn't just coming. The structural foundation has already shifted underneath our feet.
The game has fundamentally changed. The only question now is whether the institutions that run the sport will proactively shape the market or wait for the federal courts to rip it apart for them.
And that is exactly where we want to bring this back to you, the listener.
The people actually watching the games.
We've mapped out the blueprints today. We've looked at why the current fragmented system is failing everyone from the 19-year-old athlete to the burnt-out head coach.
We've examined the mechanics of the soft cap, the luxury tax, and the massive legal hurdles of revenue sharing.
So when you look at the sport you watch every Saturday, or perhaps the sport you actively participate in as a student athlete, which path do you see as the actual reality?
It's a tough call.
Do you prefer the methodical, painful rewiring of the house in Path A? Or do you think the system is so bloated and legally compromised that the nuclear option, the separate league of Path B, is the only honest way out?
It really requires considering how these massive structural shifts will alter your fundamental relationship with the game itself.
And that leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something to mull over that builds on everything we've unpacked in this deep dive.
What's the thought?
Let's say the administrators look at the legal nightmare of Path A and they blink.
Okay.
They choose the nuclear option, they take Path B, they completely sever the top tier of college football into an official corporate developmental league.
They license the brands and spin it off.
Right. They implement the perfect financial structures, the salary caps are legally sound, the luxury taxes create parity, the players have unions and workers' comp.
The ghost economy is eradicated.
The ghost economy is completely eradicated, and the finances are saved. But if the quarterback is no longer technically a student walking the same campus quad as the fans,
If he's just an employee.
if he is an official contracted employee of a licensed developmental franchise operating under a corporate umbrella, will the fans still feel that same deep, irrational, tribal connection to the jersey?
That is the ultimate question.
College football's billion-dollar valuation was built entirely on tribalism, alumni loyalty, and the romantic illusion of this student-athlete representing the school.
He's built on emotion, not logic.
Exactly. So if you implement the ultimate, perfectly logical financial structure, do you accidentally strip away the unpredictable, illogical magic that made the sport so wildly popular in the first place?
It is the defining paradox of the next decade of sports. Curing the disease might just kill the patient's soul.
A financial landscape that is perfectly clean on the ledger but maybe fundamentally unrecognizable on the field. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the remix. Keep looking past the headlines, keep questioning the mechanics, and we will catch you on the next one.